Today's assembly was given to the students of Prior Park College on Friday, the 14th of March, 2025. Last Saturday was International Women's Day. Now, this day commemorates women's fight for equality and liberation. It brings a focus to issues such as gender equality, reproductive rights, and violence and abuse against women. The day has now existed for over 100 years. Now, few people know that its date, March the 8th, was set by the communist Russian leader Lenin after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, and that for most of its existence, it's been a day that was only really celebrated in socialist countries like communist China or the Soviet Union. Nowadays, though, the day is properly international. Everywhere you look on International Women's Day, you find people talking about women that have inspired them. Prior Park College's Instagram feed was a case in point, with students talking about those women that they see as role models. And when I looked at the women who inspired our students, I was struck that so many of them were women who were still alive today. Amazing and impressive women, like the inventor Margaret Crane, who created the first home pregnancy test, or like the climate activist Greta Thunberg, or awe-inspiring sportswomen like Serena Williams. But I spent a little time thinking about it, about why the people of today, men and women, only seemed to be inspired by the women of today, by those athletes, by those advocates, and by those activists who change the world around them, the world that we all live in. And it made me question what we value today. And it strikes me that today we tend to highlight those women who operate in the cause of women's equality. After all, that is what International Women's Day is about. It is a day dedicated to equality and to equity. It is a day which is undoubtedly a modern day. As a result, though, I wonder whether it is a day which then ignores the centuries and millennia of women who weren't modern. Women who didn't live in an age of comparative economic and political freedom, and so couldn't fight for equality. The level of oppression they lived under was so profound that to fight for equality would have been impossible. And actually, for most women, it would have been completely unimaginable. Now, as many of you will know, I'm a history teacher. And so in many ways, I'm more interested in the past than in the present. One of the things I've been reading a fair bit about recently is the French Revolution. Now, many of you will know that the French Revolution was based around three ideals: liberty, meaning freedom, equality, and brotherhood, or liberté, égalité, and fraternité in France. These three words are still the national motto of France today. Now, the French Revolution is often thought of as where our modern world began. It had truly global consequences. It helped destroy the concept of absolute monarchy. It helped to break the dominance of religion in people's lives. And it introduced universal suffrage in French elections for the first time. Universal suffrage means one person, one vote. However, the French Revolution wasn't about one person, one vote. It popularized the idea of one man, one vote. One of its founding documents was the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Now, even those famous words, liberté, égalité, fraternité, finish with fraternité, brotherhood. Brotherhood concerns men and not men and women. And in the world of the French Revolution, which brought about so much that makes up our modern world today, it was clear that the concept of separate spheres was still very much at play. This idea of men and women inhabiting separate spheres is an ancient one. The Greek philosopher Aristotle, writing in the 4th century BC, wrote about two separate spheres: the oikos, or the home, and the polis, or the city. In the eyes of most of the ancient world, these separate spheres were real, and they meant that women should be confined to the oikos, to the home, and that only men should inhabit the world of the city, the polis, from which our word politics today comes. This was still the case in the French Revolution in 1789. Incredibly, it's still the case today in many countries that we might consider to be modern and focused on equality. Britain's closest neighbour is Ireland, and the Irish Constitution still states that Irish women should not be forced to engage in paid work, which might mean that they neglect their duties in the home. That's what the Irish Constitution says today in 2025. Now, in 2024, the Irish government held a referendum to change this, but for various rather complex reasons, it was rejected. Do you want to guess the date they chose to hold that referendum on? Yeah, that's right, March the 8th, International Women's Day. Not that it did them any good. For thousands of years then, this concept of separate spheres has existed. It was undoubtedly helped in the Western world by Christianity. St. Paul wrote that women should be told to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, homemakers, good and obedient to their own husbands. A woman's job in the early Christian church, and arguably still in many Christian churches today, was that of a homemaker, a mother, a wife, whereas men ran the churches and were involved in and engaged by politics and economics. Men ran things, women ran families. Now, broadly, this concept of separate spheres took root across the world, and as the Irish Constitution shows, is still with us in many senses today. I think that it is this concept of separate spheres which underpins so much of those women we idolise today. We look to those women who broke those separate spheres and who showed everyone that a woman could do whatever a man could do. In science, we think of Marie Curie, who won 2 Nobel Prizes for physics and chemistry. In music, we think of Clara Schumann, who shook the world of classical music and showed that a woman could be as prolific and as talented as any man composing such music. In sport, we think of Billie Jean King, who won 39 Grand Slam titles and campaigned for male and female tennis prizes to be equal. It feels like we are so rightly concerned with smashing this outdated idea of separate spheres that we raise up all those women who have smashed it themselves. Mostly, though, the women who have done that were only able to do it when they, and women more generally, were able to have the economic freedom to do their own thing. That is a result of the modern world, a world after the French Revolution. And so we only seem to properly celebrate modern women. It's fantastic. However, it feels like we may be at risk of erasing those achievements of so many women who didn't have any economic freedom and so couldn't win any political or social freedom. We don't do much to celebrate women who were amazingly successful within the separate spheres they had to inhabit because we hate the very existence of those spheres. Now, I love ancient Rome. It's the place that I return to over and over again in my reading. I adore reading the histories of this period, and what it tells me is that women in that time absolutely did matter. They may have been forced to operate in separate spheres. They may never have been able to imagine that they could do the things that men did, but they were still incredibly impressive within their worlds. The woman that the ancient Romans held up as the ideal of womanhood was called Cornelia. She was the daughter of Scipio Africanus, the greatest Roman general of his age, and the man who defeated the Carthaginian general, Hannibal. She married a man who was much older than her, who was called Tiberius Gracchus, who was a statesman and a general. She had 12 children by this man, 6 boys and 6 girls. 9 of the 12 died before reaching adulthood. And after the death of her husband, she chose to remain a widow and even turned down a marriage proposal from the fabulously wealthy king of Egypt. Her role in her sphere, as she undoubtedly saw it, was to be a widow, a mother, and a model Roman woman. She was questioned by her friends as to why she dressed so soberly and conservatively, why she didn't wear flashy clothes or shiny jewels as most Roman women did. Her response to them was to point out her sons and say, haec ornamenta mea, which means, these are my jewels. As a mother, she set high standards. She made sure that her sons were incredibly well educated, and both grew up to be famous politicians. Both were radicals who caused a great deal of upheaval in the Roman world, and both were murdered by the state. Politics was a bloody business in the 2nd century BC. Cornelia took their deaths stoically. After her own death, the Roman people voted to erect a bronze statue of her, which was unheard of for a woman. On it, she was known as Cornelia, the mother of the Gracchi, which was the name by which her sons, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, were known. This mattered to her, and she had challenged her sons when younger to make her famous for being their mother. In Rome, she was famous for centuries and provided a model for what a woman should be. Today, hardly anyone knows her name, and I bet that very few people listening to this assembly would ever choose her as a role model or even remember her on International Women's Day. Today, we tend not to remember women who stayed in their sphere, like Cornelia, the mother of the Gracchi. We don't remember or celebrate them properly, or sometimes even at all. Part of the reason for that is that we only really know their stories through the work of men. For most of recorded history, men wrote that history. The women that they record are so often those women who either stayed in their sphere, which the male historians typically approve of, or those women who tried to break out of their sphere, who are typically disparaged and abused in history. As a result, we get only a poor reflection of the work that these women actually did, and they can so often feel lost to us. Sometimes, though, we get the odd glimpse of women, like Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi, and we realise that they mattered. Cornelia provided a model of what mattered to the society that she lived in. Were she alive today, she may have been a president or a successful entrepreneur. However, she didn't live in a world that allowed for that. Is that sad? Or is that simply the reality? We should perhaps spend a little more time celebrating the lives of women throughout history, and those that couldn't break out of their sphere. Celebrate the examples that they set within their spheres, and at the same time give thanks that those spheres are now being shattered day by day, successful woman by successful woman. Everywhere you look in history, every book you read about history, every painting you see set in the past, every TV show about the Tudors or the Romans is a fleeting glimpse into a lost world. It's a world we should never go back to, but it's a world where women still made a difference. We should still celebrate them for what they did in their worlds then and how excellent they were at doing it. We must not simply pity them for the fact that they had the misfortune to be born in a far less enlightened age. To do so is to view them through our own lens and not the lens through which they had viewed themselves. As strong, powerful, successful, brilliant women. We will finish today's assembly with a prayer. Lord, we pray for all women who face prejudice and inequality. Help us to see and to face all the different types of discrimination faced by women and to tackle such hatred whenever we see it. Help each of us to be courageous, strong, caring, passionate, and compassionate. Amen. Thanks for listening.